From Hurricane Irma to the very latest on the Old Village and flooding to her re-election bid as mayor, Mount Pleasant Mayor Linda Page sits down with me one-on-one for this special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. Well, Mayor Page, it is so good to see you.
It's nice to see you too, as always, Quintin.
I appreciate this. So here we sit in the new Mount Pleasant Town Hall. It's been a month since this is open. But obviously a couple of days ago we experienced the remnants of Tropical Storm Irma. In downtown we received storm surge from the Battery all the way to where I live. Tell me, how did Mount Pleasant fare?
We fared very well. Our biggest issue was that same storm surge, because we saw a huge storm surge. Fortunately, the rain event wasn't as large as it could have been.
Right.
And we never got winds here over 40 miles an hour. So that was what was recorded, and we were just very fortunate that it wasn't worse than it could have been.
And speaking of recordings, the Mutual News posted this a couple of days ago. It says this: the high water mark at Shem Creek Field Dock was 8 inches higher with Hurricane Irma than it was during Hurricane Matthew last year. The 8 inches high tells you what, Mayor Page?
Well, it just means that you never know what these storms are going to do. It depends on where they make landfall. These were feeder bands that we were seeing.
Right.
So the impact of the storm was obviously centered closer to the eye wall. But it is a great test for us. It's a great test for our emergency response teams. And when they tell you a storm surge is coming, you need to take it seriously. Because we were close to, we didn't get quite to Hugo levels,
Right.
but we were right below where the Hugo levels were. And that's pretty amazing for a storm that was so far away.
Right.
But we anticipated it. So the town fared very well.
That's good to hear. And I know that you posted this on your Facebook page, but basically the town and obviously Charleston County officials have launched a new damage assessment. Talk to me more about that.
Well, damage assessment does many things. Obviously it sees if an area is eligible for FEMA funds.
Right.
So that data needs to be collected to see if there is flood damage. Not wind and hail damage, because the mayor herself lost some roof and some issues to that. But what we really need is to do those assessments to see if we are eligible for any federal funding for relief aid. And
I heard that. Tell me more about what happened. As far as, was it Page's Steve's Market?
It was. That old barn has been there since the 20s.
Right.
And during Hugo, it stood strong, but we lost almost all of the roof. So it's not unlikely that we lose a sheet of 10 here or there in a tropical storm, even at 40 miles an hour. What we didn't anticipate was that we would lose a piece of 10 where there's also sheetrock. So we had a lot of merchandise that was covered in all of that wet insulation, sheetrock, rain, and Amy's down there cleaning it up right now.
Yeah. Well, prayerfully everything will get back to normal. You talk about rain and flooding and obviously damage assessment. Let me take you to the Old Village. What is the future of the Old Village when you think of really flooding and really hurricane events such as Irma?
Well, this is a very, very important topic. I just left my meeting with the town administrator, Eric DeMora, and tomorrow night at the council meeting we're going to start discussing lot coverage ratios, and we may change ordinances as it applies to what we permit and what you can and can't have. I'm fine with changes in that, as long as all the stakeholders, which means everyone that lives in the area, from Ben Sawyer to Alhambra Hall, from Coleman Boulevard to Old Village Landing, all are aware that the town is going to have conversations that will drastically affect what they may and may not be able to do with their properties.
You talk about town council. Obviously, you've been mayor for almost 4 years now.
And I'm running for mayor again.
I'm getting there. Well, what is the biggest difference between then and now in your mind?
Well, there's so much that's different between when I first was elected 8 years ago as a council member and then as the mayor than we are now. A lot of the projects that we put in place have been completed, which is very exciting because infrastructure is key. Not only road projects, but huge storm improvement projects. We have the money in the bank now to start a $10 million project in Sneak Farm. We're looking to find the funding for a initially 10 to possibly $25 million project in the old village. We have flooding issues in Walkendale and other parts of town. So, we've been putting our money where our mouth is, so to speak. We have been working on these issues. We have been addressing the drainage. I'm very, very happy that the county voters decided to pass the half-cent sales tax referendum. It put the money in the bank, so to speak, for the widening of Highway 41. We need to fight sooner than later to get shovels in the ground and get that project done for the people who live in the north part of town. We're also funding a road called All-America Boulevard, which is very exciting because this will connect Carolina Park all the way down through a widening of Park West Boulevard.
Right.
So, what we've done is funny. People think, well, maybe people don't think. Perhaps I'm a proverbial optimist. So you kind of think that when you're in public service or when you run for office that, you're going to rally for certain things that are important to you. More dog parks or, whatever your issues are. But I can tell you that the elected officials in the Low Country talk about infrastructure.
Man.
And the elected officials in South Carolina and Columbia talk about infrastructure, as well as the elected officials in Washington, because we're behind in our needs. And I think these storms show us that we've got to take care of stormwater, and we've got to be concerned about climate change and sea level rise, and we've got urbanization of coastal areas, and we're seeing devastating floods. Look at what happens in Florida.
Right.
Look what happened in Houston.
Right.
We need to take heed and pay attention to our neighbors, and as we pray for them, learn the lessons, and we need to continue to work on these really important issues we've been working on for 4 years. Lots has changed in the 4 years I've been here.
How do you articulate that to the voters of Mount Pleasant?
Well, somebody asked me why I wasn't campaigning harder. They're like, Mayor, we haven't seen you on the campaign trail, and I had to laugh. I said, well, the mayor's been working very, very hard. When we prepare for a storm event, like we could have seen with Hurricane Irma, I think what you tell the voters is this. You gotta have a mayor that's got your back. So early on, I talked to our state representatives, our federal representatives.
Sure.
I talked to the governor's office. I talked to, most importantly for me, and the conversation that resonates loudest is my conversation with Secretary of Transportation Christy Hall.
Right.
Because we had a time before we thought a mandatory evacuation was coming, that we ran out of fuel. Our citizens were standing in fuel lines with no fuel. So they had a mayor that at 11 o'clock at night picked up the phone, and at 11:30 at night, Secretary of Transportation called me back and assured me that the Oakland pipeline was open from Houston, and that we were getting supply, and that the large suppliers would have fuel. I also talked to independent fuel suppliers like Refuel to make sure that they were going to get a steady supply of gas. I was in constant contact with our grocery stores and our Lowe's to make sure that we were going to have water and food, generators as needed. I think how do you resonate with the voters? A mayor's job is to make sure that the people who live in the community are safe. And we were listening to, we had our ears out loud for the governor's evacuation orders. But our EOC was open and running. We had the team here, and we were getting messages out. So we did a great job. I give the town an A+. But it's not over. There's still personal responsibilities that come with cleanup. So we've just put out our press release about debris. We are going to go by sector. We're going to get our roadways cleared up. We don't want people standing. We don't want school children standing at the bus stop in the morning with piles of debris. So we're going to get all that cleaned up. We just put out our press release for that. We're working with Mount Pleasant Waterworks to make sure that people don't pile debris on their water meters. It's a big issue.
It really is.
So, we're continuing our storm cleanup efforts. The town just did a great job with their modules of Alert Me and Notify Me, and we'll continue to push information out.
What letter grade would you give yourself as far as mayor?
Well, I'm a humble public servant, and you put me in an awkward spot to judge myself. I think I'll be judged by the voters in November. I think that what they can count on if they vote for me is I'm experienced. I have shown proven leadership, and I will continue to show proven leadership. The relationships that I have developed throughout, Mark Sanford called me first thing. My first call yesterday was Mark Sanford. And, of course, I'm a little upset that he didn't, vote to support the FEMA funding, but he did call. He's a resident of Mount Pleasant,
Sure.
Wanted to know if I needed anything personally, wanted to know if the town needed anything. I have developed great relationships with the county.
Right.
I talked to the EOC of the county several times during the storm event.
Okay.
So let them judge me. Let the voters judge me. I do my best every day. And that's all anybody can ask of me, Quintin.
Yes, indeed. Well, Mayor Linda Page, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
All right, and I can't wait to introduce you to my friend.
I got on a drive.
Yes, we're going to get you to learn AJ Doctor Driving. If you're listening, Quintin is your next victim. Okay?
Got to learn somehow.
I got you, buddy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that.
All right.